Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Oliver Turan. I'm with CAD Technology Center. Today's session will be kind of giving an overview of the AEC Industry Collection. It's a pretty timely topic for many. Autodesk announced these a few months back and started selling them on the new subscription lease term model that they have available. And it's becoming more of a topic more and more for firms as their maintenance renewals come due. Autodesk is offering a maintenance to subscription switch, and for many firms, one of the options that needs to be looked at and considered to see if it suits them, both from a pricing perspective and what tools it entails and workflows related to that. It's good to understand what's included in the AEC collection and how it might fit. So we'll try and cover that as much as possible today. One thing we won't be doing is diving into technical demonstrations of the tools. So this is really intended to kind of give an overview of what these collections are, what they include, what they don't include. How they're licensed is pretty important because as we get into it, we'll kind of give some tips and tricks as far as like when they might be a good fit, when perhaps they're not the best fit, and we'll talk about some of those things. So it is an Autodesk PowerPoint that I'm using as kind of the base here, but I'll kind of put on my CTC hat and provide some additional, I guess, color commentary around what we're looking at here as well. Maybe just before I start the PowerPoint and kind of dive into the slides that Autodesk has provided, one thing I did want to mention is kind of this whole idea of collections of software. It's certainly not new for Autodesk. We've had the building design suites, the infrastructure design suites, which building design suite, obviously that was focused for architects and building site engineers and maybe some contractors in the building space. Infrastructure design suite, pretty self-explanatory what that is. Civil engineers, land development, roadway projects, some bridge work in there as well. And these had different tools for those specific industries. And then going back even further than that, we had things like the AutoCAD Revit Architecture or AutoCAD Revit Structure suites, which included different variants of AutoCAD and then a Revit specific to a specific discipline. If we look at even going further back than that, one of the kind of strategies that we used as a kind of a licensing advisor going back in time here, for instance, you may or may not recall this depending upon how long you've been using Autodesk software, but and many people are maybe even unaware of this as even today. For instance, like if you had AutoCAD MEP or Autodesk Building Systems as it was known as back in the day, when you installed that, you actually got icons for what became AutoCAD Architecture or Architectural Desktop at the time, and you could install it as vanilla AutoCAD as well. So for a lot of our multidisciplinary firms out there, one of the strategies that we would take at from a licensing standpoint is from a consolidation effort standpoint is to say, well, if you have people that are using architecture-specific tools, in that case Architectural Desktop, you require the MEP side, Autodesk Building Systems, and perhaps you have some vanilla AutoCAD projects that need to be worked on. It is possible to be licensed for all three of those by buying a single thing. So as kind of time has progressed, that has been built upon. Autodesk has acquired more tools. They've developed and released some new things. And bringing it all the way back up to today, we now have these AEC industry collections. So let's go through the PowerPoint here. We'll talk a little bit about some of the benefits, kind of weigh how they're licensed, and definitely stick around towards the end because we are going to give kind of some insider strategy as far as when these are good fit and when they're not a good fit. So thank you again for joining us. So as Autodesk continues to go through kind of their licensing transition to a subscription model, they're really looking to be flexible and simple with their offerings and provide value to the customer. We'll kind of talk about these a little bit, but certainly from a flexibility standpoint and a simplification standpoint, it's certainly there. As you'll see in these collections, there's a ton of tools, and if you're using even two of those tools, really, putting these into a collection from a price point perspective makes sense for a lot of firms. So we'll talk about these a little bit more in depth here in a moment. But these collections really come in three different flavors. Today we're going to be focusing up here on the AEC or the Architecture, Engineering, and Construction collection because that's obviously the primary focus for CTC and our customer base that's on today's webcast. But just know that there are other collections, one for media and entertainment, so that has different tools like Maya and 3ds Max and Mudbox and some other tools for their industry in one big collection. And there's also a product design suite collection, product design collection, which includes Inventor, Fusion 360, and other offerings on the Autodesk product design side. So we're going to be talking primarily, as we talk about examples, around the AEC collection, but know that these other ones do exist, because I know that there's quite a few design firms that actually do have some of the media and entertainment products, like Maya, Mudbox, and other things, and those are available in these collections, aside from the AEC one. So just kind of wanted to mention that. One comment here from Autodesk, they kind of put this text up here. Certainly want to kind of cover their messaging. Most convenient and flexible way to access a wide variety of the most essential Autodesk software. And I would agree with that. It is kind of a one-stop shop to get kind of everything Autodesk has within that industry, inside that space, and ensure you're licensed for these additional products, especially as Autodesk goes out and, once again, perhaps acquires new technology. They have a bucket now to put all of those products in, so you can kind of future-proof yourself, so to speak, by having these collections and receiving that stuff as Autodesk goes out and innovates and continues to improve their product. Let's go back to that real quick, the conversation around value, flexibility, and simplification. From a value standpoint, it's certainly, from a price point perspective, if you look at some of the previous offerings like Autodesk Building Design Suites or Infrastructure Design Suite, it's basically set at or around where the Premium Suite was previously. So it's certainly much more software bundled together at about the same price. So that's something to mention. From a flexibility standpoint, you still do have the possibilities to go with single user. In other words, leasing an AEC collection and assigning it to an individual, that becoming their license to use as long as you have it assigned to them. We still do have multi-user, or as Autodesk previously called it, network or concurrent licensing available. It still uses FlexLM. Still, you get a license file from Autodesk, and that still fits within their structure. So you still have that choice. One thing I would say is these collections, they are available only in their new subscription-based model, right? So many of us out here listening to today's webcast have products that they own, and then they've been paying maintenance on to maintain and receive yearly updates and different things like that Autodesk provides. The AEC collections are exclusively available in that new subscription model. So you're buying a month term or a quarterly term or an annual term. So you can kind of pick and choose what terms fit your upcoming project or software usage load, if you're watching that stuff, and really kind of right-size the licensing that makes sense. And from a simplification standpoint, and this is certainly ringing true as some of my firms are looking at that whole maintenance to subscription offer that Autodesk has available when you come up due for renewal. They are definitely leaning towards the simplification of just saying, okay, well, if I owned 15 Revit licenses and 30 Civil 3Ds and 45 AutoCADs and 20 AutoCAD architectures and 3 Navisworks manages and 2 recaps and 2 InfraWorks, you know what, just give me an AEC collection that covers all of that, right? So I have one single pool of licenses that are flexible across multiple different divisions, studios, user groups within my firm. So that same AEC license, one day it could be used by the building side folks because they're using Revit and Navisworks out of that. And the next day, perhaps that individual's up at a client meeting. Now somebody's using Civil 3D and InfraWorks out of that package. So when we look at this, being able to spread, especially multi-user licenses, over a broader audience within your firm, you may be able to even look at reducing the overall total seat count that you have out there. Because once again, if you had 20 Revits and let's say 20 Civil 3Ds, because those 20 Civil 3Ds maybe were, suiting the needs of, let's say, 25 users in your infrastructure civil department, and those 20 seats of Revit were suiting about 25 people in the building side of of your multidisciplinary firm. Perhaps when you merge those together, you don't need 20 and 20 anymore because they're all used across different disciplines. Perhaps you don't, 40 is not the right number, maybe 35, 38, So now it enables you to kind of look at your license usage and right size it even further, perhaps getting even leaner and in some cases saving money. Or perhaps you are going to keep all 40 around because you're under growth and you want to move them all to collections because it doesn't matter if you hire more Revit side users or Civil 3D side users, you're kind of covered on both sides. So this is all Autodesk text, and kind of what I mentioned as examples is kind of my own experience in selling these and talking with firms through their licensing use. But it certainly can be beneficial when you look at license consolidation aspects of this. So what does this do for us? So as I kind of mentioned, you're getting all of the tools, right? We're also getting different tools that are perhaps going to push us to innovate in our workflows, because perhaps we've always been aware of what InfraWorks does. And InfraWorks, by the way, has use both in architectural firms and has use in civil engineering firms. Many people just kind of hear the word InfraWorks and they say, okay, well, that must be an infrastructure side tool only. I actually have quite a few architectural firms that are using that. Perhaps Format 360 Pro is something as an architect you haven't embraced or even really looked at. You're continuing to use SketchUp. Well, you already have it in the AEC collection. You have Format 360 Pro. That integrates with Revit. You don't have to throw away your models. You can use different tools like Autodesk Insight now, right? Because you have the tools available, doesn't mean you have to use them, but they are there, right? So you can choose to innovate without having to worry about like, well, I would give Format 360 a try, or I would give InfraWorks a try, but I know that InfraWorks is going to cost me $2,000 a year. Well, if it came with your collection now, and you get it with your Revit and your Civil 3D and Navisworks and everything else that you require to do your projects, perhaps you or your users are going to be more likely to dip their toes in. Maybe they're going to innovate. Maybe they're going to help you go win more projects through the different visualization offerings that are included in the collection. Perhaps they're going to dive deeper into the simulation, providing better projects. So it's I wouldn't say forced innovation, but Autodesk is certainly putting the tools in front of you. So if you choose to take a look at them, you're already pre-licensed for them. And that kind of ties in with this last point here, the ability to embrace kind of the future of what's coming. As architects, as engineers, as contractors, subcontractors, we don't always get to pick what tools or formats the project is going to be worked in, right? Sometimes that's dictated to us by the owner or a government mandate or somebody else who's hiring us, right? So it's definitely beneficial to have all of these tools in the collection. Basically, as tools in our tool pouch, we can pull out when appropriate to solve the needs of the project at hand. And I would definitely say that's what the collection's aiming to do here. Ensure that you have everything. And I guess one thing, just kind of hearkening back to my previous point around having all the tools and perhaps getting people to look at some of the things that they wouldn't otherwise do for the betterment of their projects from an innovation and technology standpoint. This can also help retain talent, right? Perhaps we have individuals chomping at the bit to learn and to professionally advance and learn more technical skills. By having these things available, it perhaps increases the level of research and development and R&D time that perhaps your users may wish to spend. One thing I want to mention here is you don't have to install all of the products. It's not forced. You can still selectively choose to give products to specific users based upon deployments and everything else. But if you choose to put tools in the hands of your users and give them resources like perhaps our YouTube page and different webcast and mini trainings we offer to our clients, then you have the ability to progress, right? So the collection gives you the tools. We at CTC are trying to give you some of the learning things that would help you get started. We also have the Autodesk Knowledge Network and other things like that to supplement that. We have our free technical support. We're trying to enable our clients to go out and win more work because we're really tied mutual success. Your success is our success. If you go out and win 2 or 3 more projects and hire 10 to 15 more people, that's good for us. We want to help you do those things, right? That's why we've branched out at CTC to cover these different areas where firms can't always invest from an R&D standpoint, like UAV drones, like 3D printing, like laser scanning, like different design deliverables, templates, content that we built up over the years. Certainly some of our tools like Revit Express tools, Civil Express tools, things like that. And these collections kind of go along with that in that we're trying to get you everything so that when the time is right, you can use what you need. So let's look at what's included. Couple things I definitely want to point out here. As I kind of mentioned, it includes Revit. It includes things like Civil 3D. Has things like AutoCAD in it, right? We're still going to need to open up DWGs for the next couple of decades probably, right? We have that there. We have AutoCAD 360 Pro. I don't know how many out there have had a chance to use that or interact with it. That's a web browser-based version of AutoCAD. Doesn't have all the functionality, but it has a lot of functionality. And for individuals that maybe we need to just quickly open up, view, manipulate DWG drawings, it's available through the collection. We have AutoCAD Architecture. That's obviously a staple, been here for quite a while. We have AutoCAD Electrical, AutoCAD Map 3D, AutoCAD MEP, P&ID, Plant 3D. Obviously, those work in conjunction with each other. Raster Design, which, to be honest, is probably one of an underutilized tool in many respects. Once again, I'm not going to dive in and do demonstrations of any of these things today because we don't have time, and that's really the focus of today's presentation. But we do have resources for all of this stuff. So definitely reach out to us, and we'd love to help you kind of explain. We can demonstrate, talk about it. And the other reason why I didn't want to show the tools themselves is because we have a pretty broad audience on today's webcast, because the architecture, engineering, and construction collection is pretty broad, obviously, in its application. And we much rather prefer and show you these tools specific to your projects. So definitely reach out to us. Looking over on the left-hand side, we have Revit, as I mentioned. InfraWorks 360. One thing of note, previously InfraWorks, there was like a free version of it, and then you could buy the 360 version, which had Model Builder in it, which would go out and grab different GIS data and aerial maps and things, imagery for you, and bring it in and compile an InfraWorks file for you automatically. Then there was other modules like drainage and vertical optimization and things like that that you could buy as modules. This is actually the entire full InfraWorks that comes with it. So definitely, look at that and leverage that. Navisworks Manage, full-blown Navisworks, clash detection, timelining, everything in there. A couple more 360 products here. I mentioned Format 360 Pro. Basically, it's Autodesk version of SketchUp Plus, I guess, and it integrates with the other Autodesk products. For instance, like it obviously chatters back and forth with Revit, with Insight 360, and quite a few other Autodesk products. Pretty slick if you haven't had a chance to look at it or haven't looked at it recently, because it has matured quite a bit since Autodesk released it a few years ago. That's included as well. Insight 360, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this tool. It's, once again, probably another tool that's underutilized. You don't actually hear much from Autodesk on it either, which is, I think, fairly odd because it is fairly powerful. It's early energy analysis, lighting, different tools like that. Definitely jump in and take a look at it. Very cool workflow specifically with Revit and Format, and I've seen some cool stuff as far as working in infrastructure projects through InfraWorks as well. Yeah, reach out to us. Recap 360 Pro, Recap standing for reality capture. That has both the photogrammetry, stitching, taking photos and creating a 3D model from that. It also has obviously the point cloud registration and managing and scaling the fidelity of point clouds and snapping them together and orientating them through a registration process. That's Recap. Rendering in A360, probably many of the Revit users on the phone are familiar with this already. You go up to your little tea kettle and you can have the option to render in the cloud. That continues to be an offering through this, and quite a few of the other products actually have rendering in the cloud as well. Structural analysis for Revit is included. That's a big deal, obviously, for our structural engineers out there. Vehicle tracking. Also, probably way underutilized and undermarketed by Autodesk on that. Basically, if you're using auto turn or really anything within that space, I would suggest taking a look at vehicle tracking. Very slick. Well, one, and if you have a collection, you already own it. You can buy it separately, but it's in here, obviously. And it has some very cool visualization stuff as well. Definitely take a look at it. And then 3ds Max. We continue to get the 3ds Max in the AEC collection. Even though it is in the Media and Entertainment suite, it's included here as well. Now, we've kind of listed through all this stuff. We've talked about some of the things. We also have AutoCAD Utility Design. I think I failed to mention that. There is one omission here. Actually, a few omissions that I want to call out. For those of you that have had Building Design Suite Ultimate licenses, everything's here with the exception of Inventor. Inventor, yeah. So Inventor's not in the AEC collection. That's a product design collection product. So it is in the product design. You can still get it individually. And where this would come into play, and I don't know if this applies necessarily to anybody on the webcast today, but I know it does apply to some of our clients. Some building product manufacturers that were using the Inventor portion to actually design their product and then had Building Design Suite Ultimate licenses because they needed Revit to generate Revit content. We've also seen some fabrication workflows that go through Inventor. Right? So Inventor is not included in this. That's one thing I definitely want to mention. So if you have Building Design Suite Ultimates or are using Inventor as part of your process, give us a call. We definitely want to talk through like, okay, what's the best way to license for you specifically? That would be one of those scenarios that I mentioned where this may or may not be the right solution for you. And that's certainly one of those ones you'd have to take a look at. A couple other things that aren't here. Some of the 360 products that are user-based from a licensing standpoint, like BIM 360 Team, Collaboration for Revit, BIM 360 Field, BIM 360 Glue, Layout, Plan, Building Ops, right? All of these are products that are cloud-based products for Autodesk that are not included in the AEC collection because they are integrated from a product standpoint, but they're not licensed through this, right? So I just want to kind of call that out as well. That definitely applies to some of our contractors and things. Not that these were ever in any previous suite as far as field and glue and layout and plan and things like that, but it's something certainly to understand that you're not getting access to that through the AEC collection. So let's talk a little bit about some of the messaging specifically to executive teams. You're certainly getting more for your money. Going back to the previous slide, I just want to do this real quick. When we talk about like saving money, say you're using Revit and occasionally you have projects in AutoCAD architecture. Well, you can lease this individually and you can lease this individually. But if you did that, you'd be paying more than you would have if you just got a collection. So basically, if you're using two of any of the kind of larger products in this, in any form or fashion, it just makes sense to get a collection. So when we talk about like savings from this perspective, that's really what we're looking at. And then also savings, as I kind of alluded to before, in the ability to consolidate licenses over multiple divisions, disciplines, offices perhaps. Because we're kind of future-proofing ourselves and getting the latest products from Autodesk kind of bucketed into a collection, like there's no standard, premium, and ultimate anymore. It's just AEC collection, and anything AEC should be filtered into this collection in the future. So certainly looking at that. And if you're able to standardize on a collection, you don't have to worry about, in other words, if say you only own AEC collections, you don't have to worry about who has access to what. It's just knowing you have X number of licenses for all of these products. It's no longer, oh, well, we need one more Revit. Oh, you know what, now we don't need that Revit license. We need an AutoCAD architecture or a Civil 3D. Like, no, it's just simplified now. So as your divisions have influx of interns, win big projects, bring in temp workers, whatever the case may be, you're able to kind of see your license count and your load and size that appropriately without worrying, well, if I buy 2 more Revits today, yeah, that division's really hot and heavy right now. Next week, I need civil, right? So why would I buy 2 new Revits for a short period of time when I don't have a long-term need there? It's just short-term, and long-term I need civil, right? So this kind of solves those issues. So let's talk a little bit about IT managers, right? From a software management standpoint. Certainly if you standardized on collections, once again, you don't have to worry about it as far as who has access to what. If everybody has access to everything, kind of removes those excuses and different things like that. Looking at procurement process, once again, you don't have to wonder, well, am I buying the right thing, short-term and long-term, as we kind of talked about on the previous slide. It's pretty simplifying the decision for you. Either you buy individual products, lease them, or you lease a collection. So pretty quickly you're able to, in a conversation with one of my account executives or myself, we're able to hone in as far as like, okay, well, if that's the scenario your business is going through or your project demand is going through, here's really the few options that you need to even worry about. So it kind of helps us cut through all of the Autodesk SKUs and all the products that are out there and available, and just kind of hone in on a few select options that apply to you. And because we're looking at possible cost savings when we're purchasing all of these Autodesk software solutions as part of a collection, and you're giving users to more technology, you do have the ability perhaps to reduce IT cost as well with some of the tools that Autodesk is working on from a update standpoint. You've probably seen this if you're in kind of the deployment or installation space within your firms. They have the little system icon, the Autodesk Update Utility or whatever it's called. They've changed the name of it a few times. But basically, through Autodesk account page, you'll notice also a devices list that's been populated as your users have been using these products. That will be the machine basically to dictate when updates get pushed to your organization, what updates get pushed to your organization, and managing it through Autodesk in that way. You still do have the option today to build manual deployments for any software updates and things like that. You can still continue to do that. However, Autodesk is starting to give us tools to automate that process or self-manage that process. So let's look at this from a bullet point standpoint. Why collections? We've talked about the value, and once again, these Autodesk slides. Continuous improvements. This is actually a pretty big deal. Because you're now leasing the products, and you've maybe seen this with Revit and some other things, we've had more than a yearly update with a lot of the products, right? So in the old building design suites side, we pretty much got just a yearly update, right? With the new industry collections that we're now leasing, Autodesk kind of can stream updates to us, or provide updates to us, I shouldn't say stream, provide updates to us when they're available. And because all the tools talk in some form or fashion, understanding that. From a cloud services standpoint, this is actually a big deal. So as an example, if you went out and leased an InfraWorks license on its own, right, a single user InfraWorks license, you can name one person to use that InfraWorks license. And you could revoke it from that person and give it to somebody else. The process takes a couple hours to populate the system, and then they could open it up and use it. For the cloud service enabled products in the collection, when it's a multi-user license, or actually, yeah, when it's multi-user license, you can name 3 people per cloud service. Because that's the whole idea of network licenses, right, is that they're being shared across multiple people. So going back to that InfraWorks example, let's say you have one AEC collection multi-user license networked, right? And for the desktop products, any one person can go and open up products in that, and that checks out the license. If they open up Civil 3D, boom, that whole collection's checked out. They open up Revit, boom, that whole thing's checked out. Nobody else can use all of the other products in there. However, for the cloud services, because they understand that different people are going to be accessing that technology at different times, they let you name 3 people to the cloud service. As an example, InfraWorks, right? So you know, you have Don, Bob, and John who all are accessing this different one license. You can name all three of them to the cloud services so that when they do have the license opened up, they can use the cloud services that are associated to the AEC collection, like InfoWorks. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal, especially for firms that are starting to use and adopt the 360 cloud-enabled products more and more. That can mean substantial savings, because previously, Don, Bob, and John, you would have had to get 3 InfoWorks licenses for them, right? That's expensive. Now you get it all in one AEC collection multi-user license. You can provide access to all of them concurrently, but they all have access. This next bullet point, not entirely accurate. Greater flexibility and choice, single user access, multi-user access with industry collections. The design and creation suites, you can, yeah, you can't even lease them anymore. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You get AEC collections now. They were available in multi-user previously at the time of this PowerPoint being made, single user only, but disregard that. Simplified packaging, well, Autodesk doesn't actually send anything from a packaging standpoint anymore, but certainly, as going back to our previous comment around, you kind of get everything in one package or one collection. That certainly can be helpful from a deployment and licensing and what do I need to buy next to placate my project needs standpoint. So at the kind of the onset of this presentation, I mentioned that many firms are, this is a pertinent topic because they're going through the maintenance to subscription switch that Autodesk is offering. And so I kind of want to mention this. For many firms, a lot of firms, it's making sense to switch to the collections. So when can you switch? I've had different webcasts on the maintenance to subscription switch plan specifically, and that basically in the 90-day window before your renewal date, we'll be in contact. We definitely send you quotes well in advance of this. We'll be in contact via phone. Certainly, though, you don't have to wait for that 90-day window. You can reach out to us at any point in time, and we can talk you through what Autodesk is doing, how it affects you specifically, what your options are, and set budgetary numbers too. And we definitely want to do that, help you guys stay ahead of the game that way. So if you've already purchased annual subscriptions, you can just simply switch those to an industry collection. If you're on quarterly or monthly subscription, suites or individual products, which is a very small number of people, you can simply just let your current stuff expire or cancel it and then resubscribe to an annual term of industry collection. The next point down, perpetual license with maintenance plan. Once again, the maintenance to subscription switch plan. You can renew your maintenance. You can choose to subscribe to new collections. Or as I mentioned during that window, that time of 90 days before your renewal, you can choose to switch to collections at the time of renewal. Now there's pricing implications there, which once again, different webcast, maintenance to subscription and what's happening there. But essentially if you're on premium suites, as we kind of mentioned previously, it's essentially the same cost whether you choose to stay in your premium suite or switch to AEC collection. But if you switch to collections, Autodesk is doing some other things to kind of sweeten that deal. They're locking in your price point for 3 years, things like that. If you're on a perpetual license that's perhaps older and you haven't kept it up to date with maintenance plan, you can continue to use, your AutoCAD 2014 license if you want, or you can subscribe to a collection. And kind of in parentheses I put here, trade-in offers. Autodesk has done this a few times, where basically if you trade in an older license of Autodesk software, they give you a discount on the lease rate for a year or 3 years on an AEC collection. So really, regardless of what you have, there's probably some option for you that makes sense. And one of the things that we do at CTC is try and keep you guys informed about the different offers and things like that. But the most meaningful conversation we can have around that is one-on-one with you and understand what you're looking to accomplish, what you require from a licensing standpoint, and then we can kind of sort through all the muck, if you will, to present options that are applicable to you. So definitely feel free to reach out to us in that regard. So just a couple things I did want to mention. We have quite a few clients on the line, some people who are perhaps watching one of our webcasts for the first time. Once again, my name was Oliver. I'm with CAD Technology Center. We're an Autodesk Platinum partner. We're technical consultants and software developers. and we serve the entire AEC industry. We do a number of different services, obviously, training. We do a lot of mobile training now, our webcast, such as today's webcast. We do a lot of on-site consultations, deployment standards, IT advisement, hardware recommendations, software implementation, looking at long-term planning, firms moving to BIM perhaps for the first time or needing to re-implement BIM due to perhaps a stumble out of the gate in some cases. Different content creation, we've developed different packages like the electrical productivity pack and mechanical productivity pack, corridor productivity pack, different tools like that, looking to basically assist our clients to do things faster, more efficiently, and put out better projects. And in many cases, we're helping firms either take portions of our knowledge, like for instance our experience in laser scanning or aerial drones, UAVs, and bring that into their projects, whether they're hiring us to do it or they wish to be taught how to do it. We do both, right? So definitely feel free to reach out to us on those fronts. Another thing, 3D printing. It's something that not every firm can invest in. It doesn't make sense for all of our clients to go out and buy a 3D printer. So that's something that we've done ourselves. We have multiple different types of technology within the 3D printing space and can assist with that. And then virtual modeling, augmented reality, virtual reality. We have all the hardware. We've helped clients actually create presentations on their projects. We've done training in those regards on those different bits of software and hardware that are related to that. Gets into like Stingray and Live and Inkscape and Fuser and Revisto and Lumion and 3ds Max and all that stuff. But we have expertise with the different hardware as well, like HoloLens, HTC Vive, Oculus, everything else. So definitely feel free to reach out to us. And just know that we're here to support you as well. Regardless of this licensing stuff, the AEC collections, all our services, all that stuff, the backbone of our company is really offering the technical support. So never hesitate to just give us a call. There's no like account number you have to give us or anything, because we actually, honestly, we support everybody for free. However, if you start using our support, we think you'll see value in what we know and what we offer. Then you'll start using us as your Autodesk reseller and interacting with us in other ways that make sense to grow both of our companies. So with that, I appreciate your time today. I will go ahead and look at some of the questions that we have here. If they're general enough to answer on today's webcast, I'll certainly do that. And if they're perhaps more specific to a single licensing scenario for a firm, we'll follow up individually. Here's a question that it's a good one. We're currently in the maintenance with 5 seats of Building Design Suite on a network server. So in other words, they're concurrent network licenses. And if they move to the new subscription, are they still able to request home use licenses? Yes, yes you are. And in fact, there's a number of other things that come with the subscription versus the maintenance offer. And I won't get into all the details, but like there's extra territory rights and things like that. If you're going to be using the software out of country for a longer period of time, there's more rights there from a subscription standpoint as well. But yes, home use licensing is still something that's available. Packaging deployments. Yes, but talk with us. Depending upon what you're using, we would advise you one way or the other. So yeah, but Mark, I'll actually have somebody reach out to you specifically on that. Another question that came up, when we listed out the software, it did not say Revit MEP or Revit Structure, it just said Revit. And actually that's a change that has come about really over the last, year and a half or so. Autodesk doesn't have the different flavors of Revit anymore. It's just Revit, and it's a single install. So if you had Revit Architecture before, you've been sent Revit. If you had Revit Structure before, you've been sent Revit. So now the architecture, structure, and mechanical, electrical, plumbing tabs are just different tabs within the same software. Yeah, another question that came in was kind of a request to do another webcast that would go specifically into the interoperability of some of these softwares. In other words, like perhaps from an architectural workflow, what are the tools and how would they suit different workflows specifically to architecture or specifically for civil engineers doing roadway projects. And I would love to do that. It just we didn't do that today, obviously, for time reasons and because it's very general. but we will be doing that in the future. And in fact, we probably have a few recorded already in that regard. So, well, it looks like that's it for questions thus far. I appreciate, once again, everybody's time today. Have a great day. This will be recorded. We'll post it to our YouTube page. And if there's any questions at all, once again, never hesitate to reach out to us. We're pretty much always in the office, and that's very intentional because we need to be here when questions arise from you guys. So thank you again, and have a great day, everybody.